I caught a thief and was arrested for robbery. I was walking to my car after a late shift at the hospital when I saw him. At first, my brain couldn't process what I was looking at. Someone who looked exactly like me was crouched beside a silver sedan, jimmying the door lock with a coat hanger. Same height, same build, same dark hair falling across his forehead. Even from 50 feet away in the parking garage's dim lighting, the resemblance was uncanny. My footsteps echoed as I approached, and he looked up. That's when my world tilted sideways. It wasn't just a resemblance. This person had my face, my exact face. Same brown eyes, same scar through my left eyebrow from a childhood accident, same crooked nose from breaking it in high school football. I stopped walking, my medical bag slipping from my shoulder. "What the hell?" I whispered. He straightened slowly, the coat hanger still in his hand. His expression shifted from surprise to something calculating and cold. That look had never been on my face before, but it was unmistakably wearing my features. "Well, this is interesting," he said, and even his voice was mine. The same slight rasp from smoking in college, the same inflection. I was wondering when we'd finally meet. He spoke like this was a planned appointment, not a random encounter in a parking garage at midnight. "Who are you?" My voice came out strangled. I thought about identical twins separated at birth, about doppelgangers, about losing my mind from exhaustion. None of those explanations felt adequate for what I was seeing. "I'm you, Oliver," he said, using my name with casual familiarity. "Or rather, I've been you for quite a while now. Thanks for the excellent credit score, by the way. Really helped with some financing." He smiled, and it was my smile, but twisted with malice I'd never felt. The car alarm suddenly blared, piercing the concrete silence. Red lights flashed against the garage walls as the sedan's security system activated. My doppelganger cursed and dropped the coat hanger, but instead of running, he did something that made my stomach drop. He pulled out a wallet and held it up so I could see my own driver's license through the plastic window. "Oliver Thorne, 1247 Maple Street, born March 15th, 1989, he read aloud over the alarm. "Social security number ending in 4826. Mother's maiden name Phillips. Should I keep going?" He tucked the wallet back into his jacket, the same leather jacket I owned. "That's impossible," I said, backing away. "That's my ID, my information." But even as I said it, I was reaching for my own wallet, knowing with growing horror what I'd find. My pocket was empty. I patted down my other pockets frantically. Nothing. "Looking for this?" He held up my actual wallet, the one with the worn corner where I'd sat on it too many times. "Picked your pocket at the coffee shop this morning. You really should pay more attention to your surroundings, Oliver. It's a dangerous world out there." The alarm cut off abruptly, leaving us in ringing silence. I could hear my own heartbeat, see my own face looking back at me with eyes that held knowledge I'd never possessed. This wasn't possible. People don't just have perfect doubles walking around committing crimes with their identification. "I know what you're thinking," he continued conversationally. "This is crazy. This can't be real. But here's the thing about reality, Oliver. It's much stranger than we pretend it is. Especially when you have a twin brother your adoptive parents never bothered to mention." Twin brother. The words hit me like cold water. My parents had always been vague about my early childhood, changing the subject when I asked about baby pictures or family history. They'd told me I was adopted as a toddler from a troubled situation, but never gave details. I'd assumed they were protecting me from something painful. "You're lying," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Too many pieces were suddenly clicking into place, the way strangers sometimes recognize me in places I'd never been, the confused looks from bank tellers when I'd claimed I'd never opened certain accounts, the credit report discrepancies I'd attributed to clerical errors. "Am I?" He leaned against the silver sedan like he owned it. "Think about it, Oliver. All those times people said they'd seen you somewhere you'd never been. All those credit inquiries you didn't remember making. The apartment complex that claimed you'd already filled out an application. I've been living your life right alongside you." Footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Someone was coming. My double's expression changed instantly, shifting from casual menace to panicked innocence. "Help!" he shouted suddenly. "This guy just tried to rob me! He took my wallet!" I stared at him in shock as running footsteps approached. A security guard rounded the corner, hand on his radio. Behind him came two people who'd apparently been walking to their car. The guard's flashlight beam swept over both of us, lingering on our identical faces with visible confusion. "What's going on here?" the guard demanded. My double immediately stepped forward, pointing at me with shaking hands that perfectly mimicked the trauma response I'd seen in real victims at the hospital. "This man attacked me," he said, his voice breaking convincingly. "He grabbed my wallet and tried to get in my car. When the alarm went off, he started threatening me." He held up my wallet, the one with my ID clearly visible through the plastic window. "That's not true," I said desperately. "That's my wallet. He's the one breaking into cars. I saw him with the coat hanger." But even as I said it, I could see how it looked. Two identical men, one with a wallet, one with empty pockets. The coat hanger was nowhere to be seen. The security guard's radio crackled. "Unit 12, we've got reports of multiple car break-ins in the downtown area tonight. Suspects still at large." His eyes narrowed as he looked between us. "Which one of you wants to explain how there's two of you?" My double stepped closer to the guard, playing the victim perfectly. "I don't know who this man is, but he looks like me and he knew my name. He said he'd been watching me. It's terrifying. He turned to the witnesses. You saw him threatening me when you walked up, right? The couple nodded uncertainly. The woman said, we heard shouting and saw them arguing, but we couldn't tell which one was which. The man added, the alarm was going off when we got here. I felt the situation spiraling beyond my control. Check the security cameras, I said desperately. They'll show him breaking into the car, not me. I just got off work at the hospital. I gestured toward the medical center visible through the garage entrance. Cameras are down for maintenance this week, the security guard said. Have been for 3 days. My double's smile was barely perceptible, but I caught it. He'd known about the cameras. This wasn't random. He'd planned this confrontation. The guard called for police backup while keeping us separated. My double continued playing his role perfectly, giving my personal information to the guard with the fluency of someone who'd lived it. Birth date, social security number, home address, even details about my job at the hospital. When I tried to provide the same information, it sounded like I was copying him. Sir, I need to see some identification, the guard said to me. I patted my empty pockets again, the futile gesture making me look more guilty by the second. My double helpfully offered to let the guard examine his wallet, complete with my driver's license, credit cards, and hospital ID badge. That's mine, I insisted. He pickpocketed me this morning at Corner Cafe on 5th Street. Check with them. Check my credit card records. The coffee purchase will be time-stamped. But I realized with growing dread that he could have used my card for that purchase, making it look like his transaction. 2 police cruisers arrived within minutes, their red and blue lights painting the concrete walls. Officer Davies, according to his name tag, took charge of the scene. His partner, Officer Kim, separated us further while Davies examined the wallet and listened to both versions of events. This is highly unusual, Davies said, looking back and forth between us. I've never seen 2 people who look this identical who aren't twins. He paused. Are you twins? I don't know, I said honestly. I was adopted. I never knew I had any siblings. My double nodded sadly. We were separated as babies, he said with convincing emotion. I've been trying to find my brother for years, but when I finally tracked him down tonight, he became violent and tried to rob me. I think he's been jealous of my success. He gestured to his expensive clothes, the same brands I favored but newer and more pristine. Officer Kim returned from running both sets of information through her computer. The wallet belongs to Oliver Thorne. Driver's license matches the address. Everything checks out. But here's the weird part. There's no criminal record. No warrants. Perfect credit score. Model citizen by all accounts. That's because I am Oliver Thorne, I said desperately. He's been using my identity. Call my work. Call my landlord. Call anyone who knows me. But even as I said it, I realized the fatal flaw in my logic. If he'd been using my identity successfully for months or years, those people might recognize him as me. Davies made several phone calls while we waited. My supervisor at the hospital confirmed that Oliver Thorne had worked his shift earlier and left around midnight, but she couldn't definitively identify which of us she'd spoken to without seeing us in person. My landlord had similar confusion, saying the Oliver Thorne he knew matched the description, but couldn't be sure about voice recognition over the phone. I'm going to need to take both of you to the station, Davies finally said. This is beyond what we can sort out in a parking garage. We'll need fingerprints, DNA testing, and a thorough investigation. He looked at my double. Since you're the apparent victim and have the identification, you won't be arrested, but you'll need to come in to press charges and give a full statement. The words hit me like a physical blow. I was going to be arrested based on nothing more than my double's word and the fact that he possessed my identification. Everything about this was surreal and wrong, but I could see the logic from the officer's perspective. They had one person with proper ID claiming to be a crime victim, and another person with no identification claiming the first person was lying. Wait, I said, as Davies reached for his handcuffs. Test our fingerprints right now. That will prove who the real Oliver Thorne is. Davies paused, considering this. My double looked uncomfortable for the first time. Is that really necessary? I just want to go home and forget this happened. My brother clearly needs help, not jail time. His sudden reluctance to pursue fingerprint testing was telling, but Davies didn't seem to catch the significance. Actually, that's not a bad idea, Davies said. We can run prints right here with the mobile scanner. He pulled a device from his patrol car that looked like an electronic pad. If you're really Oliver Thorne, he said to me, your prints will match what's on file. I held out my hand eagerly. The scanner beeped and displayed my fingerprint pattern on its small screen. Davies ran it through the database, and within seconds, it showed a match for Oliver Thorne with my driver's license photo and all my personal information. That's impossible, my double said quickly. The machine must be malfunctioning, or he somehow got his prints into the system under my name. But his confidence was cracking, and I could see Davies starting to have doubts. Let's test yours too, Davies said to my double. The scanner beeped again, but this time it came back with no match in the system. The screen showed "No record found" in red letters. My double's face went through several expressions rapidly. Panic, anger, then a frightening calm. This doesn't prove anything, he said. I've never been printed before, but I can prove I'm the real Oliver Thorne another way. He pulled out a smartphone, swiped to the photo gallery, and showed Davies dozens of pictures of himself in my apartment, wearing my clothes, interacting with my things. These photos were taken over the past 6 months, he said, clearly showing me living in Oliver Thorne's apartment, using Oliver Thorne's possessions. How could I have fake photos going back months if I just met him tonight? The photos were real and damning. He had been in my apartment, had been living my life parallel to mine. Davies looked at the photos, then at both of us. This keeps getting stranger. You, he pointed to me, have the correct fingerprints and work history. But you, he pointed to my double, have months of documented evidence of living this person's life. Plus, you're the one with the identification. Officer Kim had been quiet, but now she spoke up. What if they're both telling the truth? What if this guy, she indicated my double, really has been impersonating Oliver Thorne for months, but tonight he got caught by the real Oliver? My double's expression hardened. He'd realized the officers were starting to believe my version of events. You want proof I'm the real Oliver Thorne? He said coldly. Ask me something only the real Oliver would know. Davies looked at me. What's your mother's maiden name? Phillips, I said immediately. What was the name of your first pet? Buster, golden retriever. We got him when I was 8. Davies asked several more questions, and I answered them all correctly. But then my double answered them correctly too, his responses identical to mine. He knew everything about my life, down to intimate details I'd never shared with anyone. How could he know all this if he's not really you? Davies asked me. I thought frantically. There had to be something only I would know, something he couldn't have learned through observation or research. Ask me about the scar on my shoulder blade, I said suddenly. The one you can't see unless I take my shirt off. Davies had me remove my jacket and shirt. The scar was there, a jagged mark from falling off my bike onto broken glass when I was 12. How did you get this scar? He asked. I told the story in detail. The summer afternoon, riding my bike to meet friends, taking a shortcut through the construction site, hitting the loose gravel and flying over the handlebars into a pile of debris. My double listened intently, and when Davies asked him the same question, he repeated my story, word for word. He just heard me tell it, I protested. True, Davies said, but it's still suspicious that you both have identical scars in identical locations. He had my double remove his shirt. The scar was there too, in exactly the same place, with the same distinctive jagged shape. The pieces of an impossible puzzle were starting to form a picture I didn't want to see. Identical faces, identical voices, identical scars, identical knowledge of my personal history. The only logical explanation was also the most disturbing one. We really are twins, I said quietly. Separated at birth, but identical twins, who somehow ended up with the same scars from the same accidents. My double nodded slowly. Genetic memory isn't real, he said, but identical twins separated at birth have been known to live parallel lives. Same injuries, same preferences, same choices. It's documented in psychological literature. For the first time, he sounded like he was telling the truth. That's fascinating, Davies said, but it doesn't solve our immediate problem. One of you was breaking into cars tonight, and one of you was trying to stop it. The question is, which one is which? He looked back and forth between us, and I'm starting to think the only way to sort this out is with a full investigation downtown. Officer Kim's radio crackled with a new report. All units, be advised we have a suspect in custody for the downtown car break-ins. Multiple witnesses identify suspect as a white male, approximately 5'10", brown hair. Suspect had tools and stolen items in his possession. Davies and Kim exchanged glances. That description matches both of you, Davies said. But if they caught the real car thief, then what were you two doing in this parking garage? My double saw his opportunity. I was meeting my brother here to try to reconnect. We'd been talking online after I found him through an adoption search website. But when I got here, he became aggressive and tried to rob me. Maybe he thought I was wealthy because of the way I was dressed. Is that true? Davies asked me. No, I said firmly. I never spoke to him online. I never knew he existed until tonight. I saw him breaking into that car and confronted him, but doubt was creeping into my voice. If we really were identical twins, was it possible we'd somehow found each other through subconscious choices, met in the same place without planning it? Davies looked frustrated. Look, I believe you're both telling parts of the truth, but I can't figure out which parts. What I can tell you is that car theft is a serious crime, and someone's going to be held responsible. He looked at my double. You have identification and a consistent story. You, he looked at me, have the right fingerprints but no ID and a story that sounds increasingly paranoid. Call my apartment building, I said desperately. Ask the doorman if Oliver Thorne came home last night. Ask him to describe me. It was a long shot, but maybe the doorman would remember something distinctive. Davies made the call on speakerphone. The night doorman, Luis, answered on the third ring. Yeah, Oliver came through around 11 p.m., he said. Seemed different, though, more polite than usual. Usually he just nods and keeps walking, but last night he stopped to chat about the weather. My heart sank. That confirmed my double had been to my apartment recently. But then Luis added something that made me look up sharply. Funny thing, though, he was wearing that expensive leather jacket and nice shoes. Usually Oliver's in scrubs or casual clothes after work. Can you describe Oliver Thorne in more detail? Davies asked. Sure, about 5'10", brown hair, thin build, has that scar through his left eyebrow. Quiet guy, keeps to himself. Why? Is everything okay? Davies looked at both of us. We both fit Luis's description perfectly. Thanks. That's helpful, he said, and hung up. My double spoke quickly. Luis confirmed I was there last night. That proves I'm the real Oliver living in that apartment. But I caught something in his tone. He was worried about what Luis had observed. Luis said you were more polite than usual and dressed differently, I pointed out. That suggests he was talking to someone pretending to be Oliver, not the real Oliver. It was a thin distinction, but it was something. Davies rubbed his temples. This is giving me a headache. I'm going to need both of you to come to the station for a full investigation. DNA testing, detailed questioning, background checks. We'll figure out who's who and what really happened here. But my double had gone very still, staring past us toward the parking garage entrance. Someone's coming, he said quietly. I turned to look. A woman in a hospital uniform was walking quickly toward us. Her face lit up with relief when she saw the police cars. Officer, thank God you're here. I've been looking everywhere for Dr. Thorne. She approached us directly, but when she saw two identical faces staring back at her, she stopped abruptly. What in the world? She looked back and forth between us several times, her mouth open in shock. Do you know Oliver Thorne? Davies asked her. Of course I do. I work with him. I'm Nina Chen, head nurse in the ER. Oliver's been acting strange all week, showing up at odd hours, asking weird questions about patient files he should know about. But I never imagined. She gestured helplessly at both of us. My double stepped forward smoothly. Nina, it's me. I know this is confusing, but this man has been stalking me. He's been impersonating me, learning about my work, my personal life. It's terrifying. But Nina was studying both of us carefully. Oliver always calls me Nurse Chen, never Nina, and he's left-handed. She looked at our hands. I was holding my medical bag in my left hand naturally. My double had been using his right hand for everything I'd observed. I'm ambidextrous, my double said quickly, switching the wallet to his left hand awkwardly. Nina shook her head. No, you're not. Oliver, the real Oliver, broke his right arm in college and had to learn to do everything left-handed for months. It became his dominant hand. He still favors it for fine motor skills. She looked directly at me. Show me how you suture. I mimed the motion of suturing, my left hand making the precise movements of needle placement, while my right held the imaginary tissue. It was automatic muscle memory from thousands of procedures. My double tried to copy the motion, but did it backwards, right hand dominant. Nina nodded decisively. You're the real Oliver, she said to me. I don't know who this other person is, but he's not the man I work with every day. She's obviously confused by seeing two of us, my double said desperately. The stress is making her remember things wrong. But his confidence was completely gone now. Multiple pieces of evidence were stacking against him. Davies looked relieved to finally have a clear identification from someone who worked closely with one of us. Ma'am, are you absolutely certain which one is your colleague? Positive, Nina said firmly. This is Dr. Oliver Thorne. She pointed to me. I've worked with him for 3 years. I know his mannerisms, his habits, the way he moves. That other person might look identical, but he's not the same man. Officer Kim stepped forward. Sir, she said to my double, I'm going to need you to come with us for questioning. We have multiple indications that you've been impersonating this man and possibly committing crimes using his identity. My double's mask finally slipped completely. The pretense of being a confused victim fell away, replaced by cold calculation. You have no idea what you're getting into, he said quietly. Oliver and I may be twins, but we're not the same person. I'm everything he's too weak to be. What's that supposed to mean? Davies asked. It means I've spent the last year studying every aspect of his pathetic little life. His routines, his relationships, his fears. I know him better than he knows himself. He looked directly at me. Did you ever wonder why you felt like someone was watching you? Why things in your apartment were slightly moved around? Why your credit report had inquiries you didn't remember? I had wondered about those things. The feeling of being observed, the subtle changes in my living space that I'd attributed to forgetfulness, the financial discrepancies I'd chalked up to errors. You've been stalking me for a year? Studying you, he corrected. Learning everything I needed to know to take over your life when the time was right. Your job, your apartment, your relationships. Nina here has been talking to me for weeks, thinking I was you. Haven't you, Nina? Nina looked horrified. The late-night conversations about patient care, the questions about medication protocols, that was you impersonating Oliver? Among other things, my double said with a smile that made my skin crawl. I've been slowly replacing Oliver in every aspect of his life. Tonight was supposed to be the final step. What do you mean, final step? Davies demanded. My double looked at me with genuine hatred. I was going to frame you for a series of crimes I've been committing in your name. Car theft, identity theft, medical fraud. By tomorrow morning, Oliver Thorne would be a wanted man, and I'd disappear into your life permanently. The scope of his plan hit me like a physical blow. The car break-ins downtown. You've been doing those using my identity. Among other things, did you know your medical credentials can access some very interesting databases? Patient records, insurance information, prescription systems. There's a lot of money in medical identity theft if you know what you're doing. Davies was already on his radio calling for backup and additional charges. Sir, you're under arrest for identity theft, impersonation, fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. But my double wasn't finished. The beautiful thing about being identical twins, he continued as Davies cuffed him, is that your DNA will match mine. Your fingerprints are in the system, but so will mine be eventually. Every crime I committed in your name will have real biological evidence pointing to a real person. You. That's not how DNA works, Nina said angrily. Identical twins have the same genetic profile, which means the evidence would be inconclusive, not incriminating. My double shrugged. Maybe. But by the time that gets sorted out in court, how much of Oliver's life will be destroyed? His medical license suspended, his reputation ruined, his finances decimated by legal fees. Even if he's eventually exonerated, what kind of life will he have left? The calculated cruelty in his voice made me understand that this wasn't just about money or convenience. This was personal. Why? I asked. Why target me specifically? If we're really twins, why do you hate me so much? His expression shifted to something raw and painful. Because you got everything I should have had. The adoption, the education, the career, the respect. You got the life I was supposed to live. His voice broke slightly. Do you know what it's like growing up in foster care while your identical twin is living with a loving family? Watching from a distance as someone with your exact face gets every opportunity you were denied? For a moment, I saw past his manipulative facade to something genuinely damaged underneath. But then Davies was leading him toward the patrol car, and the moment passed. How did you find me? I called after him. He turned back, his cold smile returning. Hospital employment records are public information if you know where to look. It took me 2 years to track you down after aging out of the foster system. Another year to learn everything about your life, and now I've spent a year destroying it piece by piece. The patrol car doors slammed shut, cutting off any further conversation. Davies walked back to where Nina and I were standing. Dr. Thorne, you're going to need to come to the station to give a full statement, and we'll need to go through your financial records, work files, anywhere he might have caused damage using your identity. The reality of the situation was starting to sink in. My double had been systematically destroying my life for months, and I'd been completely unaware of it. How bad is it? I asked Davies. We won't know until we investigate fully, but based on what he just admitted to, you're looking at identity theft on a massive scale. Medical fraud, financial fraud, possibly other victims who think they were dealing with you. Davies paused. The good news is that his confession was recorded, and we have multiple witnesses. That should help with proving you're the victim, not the perpetrator. Nina put her hand on my shoulder. Oliver, I'm so sorry. I had no idea I was talking to an imposter. He seemed like you, but different. I thought you were just stressed from work. It's not your fault, I said, though I was still processing the implications. How many conversations did you have with him? Maybe a dozen over the past month. He'd show up during shift changes, asking questions about protocols and patient care. I thought he was being thorough, maybe preparing for a promotion or something. She looked sick. What if he used that information to hurt people? Davies overheard. We'll investigate every possibility. Dr. Thorne, I need you to make a list of everyone who might have interacted with your impersonator. Colleagues, patients, anyone who might have given him access to sensitive information. Over the next hour, we compiled a preliminary list that was disturbingly long. Nina alone had identified over a dozen interactions with my double that she'd mistaken for conversations with me. The hospital's security office would need to review months of footage to determine how many times he'd been in the building using my identity. There's something else, Nina said, as we were finishing the initial report. About 3 weeks ago, the fake Oliver, asked me about the narcotic storage protocols. He wanted to know about inventory procedures and access codes. I thought it was odd at the time, but I answered his questions. Davies looked up sharply from his notes. Drug theft? Possibly, Nina said. We did have some unexplained shortages in the controlled substance inventory over the past month. Nothing major, just a few pills here and there that we attributed to counting errors. The scope of my double's crimes kept expanding. Identity theft, medical fraud, now potentially drug theft. Each revelation made me realize how thoroughly he'd infiltrated my life, while I remained completely oblivious. Dr. Thorne, Davies said, I want you to go home and check everything. Bank statements, credit reports, personal belongings, anything that might show evidence of tampering. Don't touch anything that looks suspicious, just document it and call us. The drive home felt surreal. I kept looking in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see my own face staring back from another car. The parking garage encounter felt like something from a nightmare, too bizarre to be real. My apartment building looked normal from the outside, but Luis, the doorman, studied my face carefully when I entered. Dr. Thorne, is everything all right? You look shaken up. Luis, I need to ask you something important. Over the past few weeks, when you've seen Oliver Thorne coming and going, did anything seem different about him? Luis considered the question. Now that you mention it, there were a few times when Oliver seemed like a different person, more talkative, asking personal questions about the other residents, and he started tipping me, which you never did before. He paused. Is everything okay? Someone's been impersonating me. The police are investigating. I handed him Davy's card. If you remember anything else unusual, please call this number. Luis's eyes widened. That's crazy, but it explains a few things. Last week, Oliver asked me about Mrs. Thompson in 4B. Wanted to know her schedule when she came and went. I thought it was strange because you'd never shown interest in the neighbors before. Another victim, potentially. Mrs. Thompson was an elderly widow who lived alone. If my double had been planning to target her using access gained through impersonating me, the scope of his scheme was even worse than I'd realized. Inside my apartment, everything looked normal at first glance, but as I moved through the rooms systematically, subtle signs of intrusion became apparent. Books slightly out of order on their shelves, clothes folded differently in drawers. My computer showed recent activity during hours when I'd been at work. In my desk, I found documents that didn't belong to me. Credit card applications in my name for cards I'd never requested. A lease agreement for a storage unit I'd never rented. Bank statements showing transactions I'd never made. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. Your brother. The email account had dozens of messages I'd never seen before. Correspondence with landlords about apartment rentals, with employers about job applications, with banks about loan applications. My double had been living an entire parallel life using my identity, creating a web of obligations and relationships I knew nothing about. One email thread made my blood run cold. Messages exchanged with someone named M. Thompson about investment opportunities and financial planning. Mrs. Thompson from 4B had been corresponding with someone she thought was me, discussing her retirement savings and insurance policies. I called Davies immediately. He's been targeting my elderly neighbor. I found emails about her finances. We're on our way, Davies said. Don't approach the neighbor yourself. If your double has been grooming her for financial fraud, she might be in immediate danger. While waiting for the police, I kept reading through the emails my double had sent using my identity. The level of detail was staggering. He'd researched my medical career extensively, using real cases and procedures to sound authentic when discussing healthcare topics. He'd studied my writing style, mimicking my word choices and sentence patterns. Most disturbing were the personal emails, messages to dating websites, social media profiles, even correspondence with distant relatives I barely knew. He'd been cultivating relationships across every aspect of my life, slowly taking over my social connections, one interaction at a time. Davies arrived with Officer Kim and 2 additional detectives. Dr. Thorne, we need to see everything you've found. I showed them through the apartment, pointing out the evidence of intrusion and the fraudulent documents. The lead detective, Sergeant Walsh, photographed everything while Davies compiled a list of potential victims based on the email correspondence. This is one of the most comprehensive identity theft cases I've seen, Walsh said. Your impersonator wasn't just stealing your credit. He was systematically replacing you in every aspect of your life. Officer Kim looked up from my computer. Dr. Thorne, when did you last check your credit report? Maybe 6 months ago. Why? She showed me the screen. You need to see this. My credit report showed dozens of accounts I'd never opened. Credit cards, loans, even a mortgage application for a house I'd never seen. The total fraudulent debt was over $200,000. He's been building a complete financial profile using your identity, Kim explained. The scary part is, he's been making payments on time, keeping your credit score high. This wasn't random fraud. He was planning something big. Davies found something else in my email that made everyone go quiet. Dr. Thorne, did you know your impersonator was corresponding with someone claiming to be your birth mother? I felt the room tilt. That's impossible. My adoption was closed. I don't have any information about my birth parents. Davies showed me the email thread. Messages from a woman named Margaret Hayes, claiming to be my mother and expressing desire for contact after decades of separation. The emails were heartbreaking, filled with maternal love and regret, asking for a chance to reconnect with the son she'd given up. But I'd never seen these messages. My double had been corresponding with this woman for months, pretending to be me, accepting her love and trust, while planning God knows what kind of exploitation. We need to contact this Margaret Hayes immediately, Walsh said. If she's been sending personal information or money to your impersonator, she's another victim. The phone call was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Margaret Hayes answered on the second ring, her voice immediately brightening when I identified myself as Oliver. Oliver, I was just thinking about you. Did you get the photos I sent? I can't wait for you to visit next month like we planned. Her voice was warm and maternal, filled with genuine love. Ma'am, I need to tell you something difficult. I never received any photos, and we never made plans to visit. Someone has been impersonating me in your correspondence. The silence that followed was heartbreaking. When Margaret finally spoke, her voice was small and broken. What do you mean? I explained the situation as gently as possible. Margaret had been sending money to help with my medical school loans. She'd shared family photographs and personal stories. Most painfully, she'd opened her heart to someone she thought was her long-lost son. I sent him $5,000 last week, she whispered. He said he was having trouble with his residency program and needed help with expenses. I was so happy to finally be able to do something for my son. Davies took the phone and spoke with Margaret for another 20 minutes, gathering details about the fraud and arranging for local police in her area to take a full statement. When he hung up, his expression was grim. This goes way beyond identity theft, he said. Your impersonator was conducting elaborate emotional fraud on multiple victims. Mrs. Thompson, Margaret Hayes, probably others we haven't discovered yet. Over the next several hours, the full scope of my double's scheme continued to unfold. The storage unit rented in my name contained stolen medical supplies and forged prescriptions. The credit cards had been used to purchase expensive equipment that was then resold online. The mortgage application was for a house he planned to buy and immediately refinance, extracting cash while leaving me responsible for the debt. But the most chilling discovery was a detailed timeline he'd kept, documenting his year-long study of my life. Photos of me leaving work, notes about my daily routines, copies of personal documents he'd somehow obtained, plans for gradually taking over every aspect of my existence until Oliver Thorne essentially ceased to exist as an independent person. "Why tonight?" I asked Walsh. "Why did he choose tonight to confront me directly instead of continuing his behind-the-scenes identity theft?" Walsh studied the timeline documents. "According to this, he was planning to disappear you permanently. There are notes here about staging an accident or making it look like you'd left town voluntarily. Tonight was supposed to be the night he replaced you completely." The words sent a chill through me. If I hadn't happened to walk through that parking garage at exactly the right moment, if I hadn't seen him breaking into that car, what would have happened? Would I have simply vanished one night, with everyone believing that Oliver Thorne had left of his own accord? "There's something else," Nina said quietly. She'd been reviewing the hospital security footage on her laptop. "Oliver, your impersonator has been in the hospital at least a dozen times over the past month. But here's the scary part. He's been there during your shifts. While you were working in the ER, he was somewhere else in the building. The implications hit me immediately. He was establishing an alibi, creating evidence that Oliver Thorne was in two places at once. So when people started investigating the inconsistencies, they'd think I was having some kind of psychological break." "Exactly," Nina confirmed. "He was setting up a situation where any investigation would conclude that you were suffering from memory loss, dissociative episodes, or worse. Who would believe the identical twin story without concrete proof?" Davies nodded grimly. "It's actually brilliant, in a sick way. If you'd tried to report identity theft, the evidence would have suggested you were the one committing crimes and then forgetting about them. Your impersonator would have appeared to be the stable, reliable Oliver Thorne, while you'd seem mentally unstable. The psychological manipulation was almost as disturbing as the financial fraud. My double hadn't just stolen my identity. He'd been systematically destroying my credibility so that I couldn't effectively fight back when I discovered what he was doing." "Dr. Thorne," Walsh said, "we're going to need you to work with us over the next several weeks to unravel everything your impersonator did. Every fraudulent account, every victim, every crime committed in your name. It's going to be a long process." As the sun rose over the city, I sat in my violated apartment surrounded by evidence of a year-long conspiracy against my very existence. The man in custody wasn't just a criminal. He was my identical twin brother, someone who shared my DNA but had chosen to use that biological connection to destroy rather than connect. The phone rang, and Davies answered it. After a brief conversation, he hung up and turned to me with an expression I couldn't read. "Dr. Thorne, there's been a development. Your impersonator wants to make a deal. He says he has information about other victims, other cases of identity theft involving adopted children and their biological siblings. He claims this is bigger than just you and him. The idea that there might be other victims, other twins, separated at birth and then targeted by their siblings, was almost too horrible to contemplate. But it also offered a path toward justice not just for me, but for others who might be going through the same nightmare." "What kind of deal?" I asked. "Full confession and cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. He says he can help us break up an entire network of identity thieves who target adoptees by using their biological family connections." I thought about Margaret Hayes, heartbroken by fake maternal love, about Mrs. Thompson, nearly scammed out of her retirement savings, about all the other potential victims who might be out there, unaware that their biological twins were systematically destroying their lives. "Do it," I said. "Take the deal." 6 months later, I testified at the trial that brought down one of the most sophisticated identity theft rings in the country. My double kept his word, providing evidence that led to 12 additional arrests across 4 states. The network had been specifically targeting adopted children, using DNA databases and public records to find their biological siblings and exploit the connection for fraud. Margaret Hayes and I developed a real relationship after the case was resolved. She was my biological mother, and despite the terrible way we were brought together, we found genuine connection and healing. Mrs. Thompson recovered her stolen savings and now volunteers with elder fraud prevention programs. As for my brother, he received 8 years in federal prison. During the sentencing, he looked directly at me and spoke publicly for the first time since his arrest. "I spent so many years hating you for having the life I thought I deserved," he said. "But the truth is, you earned everything you got through hard work and kindness, while I chose hatred and destruction. I'm sorry, Oliver, for all of it. I don't know if I'll ever forgive him completely, but I've found peace with the knowledge that his crimes led to justice for dozens of other victims. My identity is my own again, stronger for having been tested, and I've learned that family isn't just about shared DNA. It's about the people who choose to stand by you when someone tries to erase your very existence. The real Oliver Thorne survived because good people like Nina, Davies, and Margaret Hayes refused to let him disappear. That's a kind of family worth having.